are spending 22 minutes today with Jim Gaffigan, sponsored by Hint.
Hint. Just a hint.
Just a hint. Just a little bit of
little
flavor.
Hint.
Just a little.
A hint. That sounds kind of flirty, right?
It does
Hint.
a little bit.
We're always looking for a better water than just water. We're never satisfied.
This has caffeine in it.
Caffeine water, and it's natural caffeine. Because when I think of when I drink water that has caffeine unnaturally pumped into it, I want to know it's natural.
Right. Are you a water drinker though?
I try and drink water.
Okay.
I drink sparkling water.
Okay.
I drink sparkling water, and I've lived in New York for like 26 years, and it's weird when you go, because I'm always traveling around, and I'll go, yeah, can I have a seltzer? And in most parts of the country, they're like, what? This isn't a bar from the 1930s. But they don't have seltzer in a lot of places.
Right.
It's a great story. I'm filled with fascinating
You provided me with a segue, traveling. So you're hitting the road tomorrow, actually. You're off to Montana starting a tour. This is a big tour, right? You're going to be everywhere.
It is. I mean, my journey of doing stand-up, I feel as though, there comes a point where you hate the road, and now I'm back in love with it. Just because, maybe it's because I have 5 kids, and it's a brand new hour of material separate from this one. Right. And I just love traveling now. I mean,
do they go with you?
They do mostly.
Yeah.
They mostly do. I mean, on this one, I'll be bopping around for like 4 days straight. So it would be really inconvenient for them. But typically during the summer, we'll go on a tour bus, kind of like a Brady Bunch tour bus.
Oh, wow.
And they love it. My wife hates it, but
but that's great. And so you get to spend, but that must be hard too, because you have to perform at night, and then in the daytime, I mean, do you have the energy to do stuff with them in whatever city you're in?
I'll lie and say I do. I mean, I typically will have, I'll do a small activity, but it's most taxing on my wife because she's also my writing partner, so she'll come to the shows, and we'll talk afterwards about ideas. But the reason for the tour bus was I don't want to be away from them that long. I'm going and I'm doing a bunch of shows this weekend, and around the second night, I'll really kind of miss them. That's the thing with kids. It's like that first night away, you're like liberation, and then the second night, you're like, you start hearing the Cats in the Cradle song. So.
Exactly. So, and part of the tour brings you back here to the big city. I'm
really excited. I'll be doing the Beacon Theater in September 28th to 30th, and I mean, the Beacon Theater is amazing. Performing in New York City it's a big deal for a New Yorker, and I love performing in New York because there's always an extra 15 minutes that I can't do anywhere else. That people that work and live in New York City will understand that they might not understand in other parts of the country. Because I'm talking about my hometown.
Right, or other countries. I was looking at the list of the cities that you're going to be playing Reykjavik. Do you have to change your material? Do you have to change it at all, or do you just assume, okay, these people, they know who I am, they know what my thing is? Yeah,
there's some of it is. I mean, I personally enjoy international travel, and because of Netflix, because it's essentially the world is shrinking. So people in Iceland or in Oslo, and Facebook, we're on Facebook now, right? People throughout the world can see your stand-up, and they become familiar. But essentially, those Nordic countries where their television shows are in English, so there isn't the language barrier that might exist, say, in France or in Italy.
Right, that's true. I remember long ago being a kid and visiting family in Germany, and they were watching, to show you how old I am, Bonanza with dubbed into German sometimes, sometimes in English, but that was pretty
so
funny,
it's those countries where they consume entertainment in English, you can do stand-up. So it's really fun.
This Cinco, I watched it last night. I mean, it was just great. It was just fantastic, and I love too that. I mean, have you done this with a lot of your comedy specials, released it on vinyl, or is that because vinyl's so cool again?
Yeah, it's really interesting, the path of vinyl, because now there's people that will only consume things in vinyl. And, you know, but the vinyl thing it's fun, but also, you know, we made a point, Jeannie and I, because everything is, you know, all these specials are on Netflix and there's Pandora and, you know, you can consume stand-up in a lot of different ways that, you know, it's all about bonus material on albums now. And so Jeannie and I did a commentary track on each of the tracks, which was fun.
Only on vinyl?
No, it's on.
Or you can get it out.
It's on the iTunes version too.
All right, all right.
But vinyl, you know, vinyl's also large. So when you do a TV show, they always bring the vinyl one out.
Right, right. No, it's cool. It reminds me of, you know, the old days when like Steve Martin, you would have a comedy album like that. Did you have a lot of those when
I was a little kid? I would, you know, I would have friends that we would listen to George Carlin or Steve Martin or Bill Cosby, but my parents weren't, you know, like they were listening to, you know, Pink Floyd. I mean, now it sounds like they were drug addicts, but no, they were not huge consumers of stand-up. I did have some neighbors, their parents were, so I definitely remember someone putting down a comedy album and consuming it.
Yeah, there's I mean, some of the bits I just I don't know if I had to pick I really couldn't pick a favorite, but Mary Had a Little Lamb. That has to be up there.
You know, it's you know, what was really fun about doing Cinco is, so, you know, my wife and I, we write everything together, and we got done. My wife directed the special and obviously executive produced everything. And it was my 5th comedy special, and, you know, there was a panic, like, is there any more material? You know, and it's, you know, but I had some dates coming up, so I had this panic overcome me, and I ended up, you know, coming up with a brand new hour. So here we are, you know, 8 months later, and I have a brand new hour, which, I mean, I've been doing stand-up for like 2,000 years. I should be able to write an hour. But, you know, whenever I look at this, I remember looking at the mock-up of this material going, this might be the last one. And it's also really important when you tour that people see new material. Like, there's an unwritten agreement between the performer and the audience that they're going to see new stuff and it's going to be great material, and maybe there's some you know, some classics in there.
A few of the greatest hits.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Which is strange. It's strange to kind of consider stand-up bits that way, but I'm lucky, you know, like Hot Pockets is a blessing and a curse. It's whenever I'll do it at the end, and there's always a portion of the audience that's like, good, that's why I came, which is fascinating.
Well, we had somebody here who said, I couldn't find Hot Pockets today. They wanted to bring him to the set.
Yeah.
So you mentioned we're on Facebook Live, and you mentioned that being in the city, you know the city, you know 1010 WINS. I'm looking up at the board here. We were getting some questions from Facebook, and somebody asked if you could do a traffic report.
1010 WINS.
Yes.
1010 WINS. It looks like the Bruckner. I just remember.
Safe bet with the Bruckner, by the way.
There is, you know, 1010 WINS is one of those New York things that, you know, like obviously the dun, 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 which is. There's this panic. It makes everything sound important. Like, oh my gosh, I just had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Dun, 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 dun. You're like, oh my gosh, peanut butter and jelly? But it's also, you know, commuting, which so many New Yorkers, you know, in the tri-state area, it's such a, you know, there's probably a love-hate relationship with 1010 WINS. Like, it's like, because I love it because I love just like facts. I love news. Like, we're gonna get to it, which is the opposite of what we're doing right now. But I love the fact that it's just like, we're gonna give you this stuff. It's just the facts. We're gonna move on. We're gonna dun 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 dun. Right. And so I don't know if I'm making any sense.
Yeah, you are making sense. We get 22 minutes and we give it to you.
There's an immediacy to it.
There is, absolutely, absolutely. Hey, a less...
Joe Mantone.
John Mantone.
John Mantone.
He will love the shout.
I'm John Mantone. It's interesting when you meet people. Like sometimes those, I feel as though maybe I'm projecting this, but like 1010 WINS is almost a throwback to those voices that are so, I think NPR has this too, these voices like John Mantone. You know, like he's not putting it on. Like he just walks around his house. I'm John Mantone. You know, like, do you know what I'm saying? I don't know if I'm making any sense.
We are sort of classic radio announcers.
It's classic, but it's the best type of classic, I think. It's not the icky part.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know what the icky part is. It's like, you know, maybe like the morning zoo that's making fun of like, you know, a disabled person. You know what I mean? It's like the best of radio.
Yeah. Well, that's
why 1010 WINS is the best.
Oh my gosh. All right. Okay. We have our soundbite there. I want to talk about, we have more Facebook questions, but I want to ask you about your movie career. I was so interested to read, you were in Chuck recently, and you have Chappaquiddick coming up.
Yeah.
And you're playing like the lawman.
Yeah.
The guy who's there with Kennedy the night of. Is that something, or is this going to be like a whole new thing, like the serious Jim Gaffigan?
Well, you know, I've always loved acting. It's just the task of getting the acting jobs. You know, I've always described auditioning. It's like stripping, but you don't get $1. You know, there's something really, it's like auditioning, and I auditioned for Chuck and Chappaquiddick, I was offered it, but there's something so fun about serious acting, and I mean, I love comedies, but serious acting, it feels closer to dress up when you were a kid. Yeah. When you're kind of like putting an outfit on and you're pretending to be a mobster, and you might put on an accent, you know, because in Chuck I put on an accent, and Chappaquiddick there was an accent too, and that's just.
Did you have to do the hard Boston accent?
It was. I mean, it was like a gentle Boston, because like the Kennedy accent is almost unique to itself.
Right, it's more patrician, I guess. Yeah.
And Paul Markham, who I played, was more of a Boston, not like a super blue collar guy, but, and it's weird because like don't ask me to do it now because I would be nervous, because even the Jersey accent, the Bayonne accent, it was
for Chuck.
But it's fun. It's fun, and I remember I auditioned for Chuck, and they were very nice, and they were like, "Look, you're kind of a white bread guy. This guy's supposed to be from Bayonne," and I was like, "Look, just let me come back in," because I did it. Sometimes when you audition, you don't want, you know, like you're like, I'm just going to do myself, my own voice. And then I said, let me come back in and I'll do the Bayonne accent. And so I got it. And, you know, it's a pretty fun story. And, you know, it's the story of, you know, the real Rocky. So, and it's such a, you know, it's a boxing movie, but it's also a strange, you know, like everyone who's had a piece of success in their life, the consequences of it are enormous. Right. You know, it's like, it doesn't matter if you get to fight Muhammad Ali or if you win the lottery. It's like how we process gifts or blessings. It's like, I mean, I'm not perfect. So it's like Chuck, the story of Chuck was very unique. Yeah. And it was something that you watch it and you're like, yeah.
I'm getting more Facebook questions. Okay. Somebody wants to know, what is Jim Gaffigan's view of the selfie? Do you get asked that all the time? Like if you walk down the street, people come up to you and say, hey, and, you know, do the...
Yeah, I mean, there's, you know, the photo thing is very odd. The selfie thing, we know that narcissism is bad, right? It's almost as if we know narcissism bad and we still embrace the most disgusting aspects of it.
Right. Doesn't matter.
That being said, you know, I'm on Instagram. I'm fascinated by, you know, keeping up with friends and stuff like that. But I don't know. I mean, I'm on social media, but I almost have a different incentive. Mine is I am touring. And so, you know, and Twitter in some ways is kind of like a little bit of a writing notebook where I'll come up with an idea and I'll put it on Twitter. And sometimes if it explodes, it might end up in the act, but.
Oh, that's interesting. So that's part of the process.
It's become part of the process. Like I have a joke that it's not in this special, but you know, imagine you have, if you want to know what it's like to have 4 kids, imagine you're drowning and someone hands you a baby. And that was a tweet. And I remember I was driving to, with Tom Shalhoub, who was opening for me at the time, and we were driving to a casino in Connecticut, and he was like, "You should do that tweet as a joke," and I'm like, "Really?" So there's some ideas. Sometimes it's you know, like they're kind of self-contained, and I don't know. It's interesting and a fun process to be funny on social media, because you could spend your entire time complaining, because we live in very difficult times, and there's things that you can be upset about, and it's probably more therapeutic to articulate them verbally than to put them on social media.
Right. Do you bounce everything off your wife? Another Facebook viewer wants to know how she's doing.
Yes. Oh, she's doing great. She, you know, again, she had a brain tumor. You know, I did this social media post about, you know, my wife, you know, the love of my life. Together we've done 5 comedy specials, 2 books, you know, 2 seasons of a TV show, and 1 massive brain tumor. But she's doing well, you know, and it's
healthy.
You know, she's like a tank. So it's one of those things where it's not. I think, you know, there's so much I've learned through this, but like when people go through something like this, like she is out of the woods, but it's still an incredible task. Like I think that emotionally humans are like life-threatening thing. Okay, God bless you, you made it. Now I'm going to go over here. But the reality is that person, the recovery process is unbelievable. Yeah. She's, you know, she goes into the hospital like every other day for tests and stuff like that. So it's like, you know, it's a great situation that we're in, but it's a lot easier for me than, you know, like she's, you know, she describes herself feeling like a pincushion a lot.
Oh, yeah. So. And tough with the kids, because when you're a parent, you barely get a cold.
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely. Yeah. But like that's where she's amazing. And it's funny, she went in for a 2-hour MRI. This is the type of woman she is. A 2-hour MRI, which is that machine where you can't move, or
the worst.
And she came out, and the first thing she said to me, she was like, "Grab a pen. I have some ideas." So like she thought of like comedy in there. And as this, you know, this incredible experience, because we really are the benefit of a lot of blessings through this journey. It's, you know, it's therapeutic to talk about it. A lot of people have gone through similar things, and I don't know. I think it's interesting. It's like, I think human beings, we have to live with a certain denial about some of this impending drama that we all deal with.
Yeah, yeah.
It
is better not to think about some
right?
of it,
It's better,
sure.
You know, I was saying to a friend, I'm like, you know, it's like Richard Lewis is very funny, but, you know, that point of view is not something that a lot of us we don't want to live in that paranoia.
Right. Who were your comic idols growing? You got a big break when on the Letterman show,
yes,
right?
Definitely.
Was he the guy, or were there other guys?
Well, Letterman was definitely a huge. I mean, I'm from Indiana. I remember watching him on television and thinking, "Wow, that guy's from Indiana." Because I'm from a small town that, you know, like the only thing we had to the entertainment industry was a marching band. So it was. But it was also David Letterman's sensibility, that sardonic sarcasm that was essentially self-effacing, which I think, you know. But also Bill Murray and I love Jonathan Winters, a certain silliness. Yeah. But there's a lot of influences. But I consider myself, you know, I'm from Indiana, but I proudly consider myself a New York comedian, which is probably a long thing to explain, but. You know, the New York City I started stand-up in the 90s, it was a little bit of combat. Like, you had to, you know, there was an expectation that someone was going to yell something out. There were people that were gonna dislike you just based on your appearance, no matter what you looked like. Right. So there was the material had to be king. So that's where I'm very proud to be a New York comedian.
You know, watching your special last night, I said to my son, and by the way, it was like a really great thing. I could watch it with my son and my husband and not worry about, you know,
Thanks.
Every other word is an F-bomb. It was really refreshing. But what I wondered, we were like, how does he do those transitions? And how the heck do you remember all that stuff?
Well,
how do you do? Do you just rehearse the whole hour again and again and again and get everything in your head, or do you have sort of pieces of it and then you just sort of riff through the hour? Or?
Yeah, it's you know, some of it is, you know, it's easier because I did a play on Broadway. It's a lot easier when you write it.
True.
And
yeah.
It is also not set completely in stone. So, you know, you have to keep the material alive by point of view. And you know, I appreciate you saying that it's nice to watch in front of your 13-year-old and not be embarrassed, and not for him to be embarrassed, right? Because he's watching it with his mom.
Why am I watching this with your mom? Yeah.
And, you know, that's nice. But some of it is, I wish that, you know, there's not any design. That's just the stand-up that comes out of me. That's not to say I don't curse in everyday life. I mean, I live in New York City. Do you know what I mean? It's like there's, you know, but some of it is, it's point of view and authenticity in stand-up. So if me doing... and that's not to say that I don't think of dirty jokes, but like if I want to do an hour show and tour with it, it's the consequences of like you can't talk about certain things and then discuss leaves. At least I can't. Do you know what I mean? It's you can be. And I'm from a small town, and so being. I mean, I curse, but like if I curse in front of someone on you know in public, there's this you know it's going to sound like BS, but like there's a certain level of embarrassment.
Yeah.
Like I would, like if I lose my temper, I'll curse. But otherwise, it seems, you know, I was kind of raised where like cursing, I was shocked when I moved to New York and everyone was cursing. I was shocked. I know I was from Indiana, but like, it just seemed in some ways uncreative. Right. Now, that being said, many of my favorite comedians they curse. And it's very authentic for them. But it wouldn't be authentic for me to curse that much.
Well, this without curse, this is so creative, so funny. Cinco, fantastic. Your tour, and you'll be back at the Beacon. And I hope you come see us again sometime.
I will.
The Big 10-10. Thank you so much.
John Mantone.
Jim Gaffigan, thank you.